right, so let's move on. We'll go through some of our NFL stories. So, do we need to mention that the Packers lost to the Giants this morning?
Well, I mean, it's quite obvious. I mean, that the Packers are struggling because Aaron Rodgers is doing ayahuasca in the offseason and he doesn't trust his wide receivers, and that's basically the source of all their problems.
Yeah, I think, they've
As
got
Colin Howard would say.
Right, they've got some issues with their offense, irregardless of the quarterback. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm saying it anyway. Irregardless, I think it's surprising to me that they are not able to run the ball better. To kind of use that as a foundation. I didn't see the whole game, but from what I did see, it looked like it was a real struggle. And Aaron Rodgers seems to resort to just chucking the ball down the field instead of trying to take what the defense gives them. That's a tough deal. I mean, they basically they probably should have lost to New England, and they lose to the Giants, and I don't believe that the Giants or the Patriots are good teams at all. So it's quite disturbing that this is if this is what the Packers are, this is a real problem. They're one of those. They really need to get a whole lot better, or the end of the season is going to be really rough for them too.
Right.
But I think. Listen, no offense to the New Yorkers, right? If any of them listen to this podcast, they're probably going to assault me in the street. But I don't think the Giants or the Jets are good. I know you both have winning records. I know you're 4-1 and 3-2. I get it. But I'm sorry.
Have they done anything that's really impressed you? I mean, really?
Saquon Barkley's awesome. I mean,
well, yeah, but we kind of knew that.
Right. No, I mean, they play. Listen, they're playing hard. I think that's great. Like they're playing their butts off. The new coach has got them, fired up. I think that's cool, and I think he's doing whatever he has to do to give them a chance to win with Daniel Jones. Like a big part of the coach's job is to manage the quarterback. And they're managing their quarterback really well. They're having him do the things that he can do. He's not going to complete a whole lot of passes. He's really good at running. So they're going to, kind of put that stuff in there for him, that's where they're at. The Jets, I think, I think the Jets' outlook is actually better than the Giants because they have some young players that are pretty good. I don't know if, I don't know if their offensive coordinator, their offensive play calling, and their quarterback are legit. But I do know they have some young talented players, which is good. But that game they won against Cleveland is a joke, and they beat a third string quarterback today. So I don't think it's time to raise a banner yet for either one of the New York teams, and we'll see. They're in my not going to make the playoffs list. So unless I'm way off, like we'll see how it goes. But for now, I'm still not buying it, even if some other people are. The Buffalo Bills are back to being the Buffalo Bills. This is what kind of I thought that was a possibility when they played Miami, that they would do that, and they took Pittsburgh behind the stadium and just beat them to death. I mean, it was that game was over in the second quarter. I think Josh Allen had 300 yards passing in the first half. Like it was a joke. One of the funny things though was when they're up 31-3, Buffalo's at the goal line about to go in to score, and somebody fumbles into the end zone and Pittsburgh recovers it. And Tony Romo says, "This is how the comebacks start, Jim."
This is how it starts, Jim.
This is how it starts. Very excited. As Tony Romo is excited about everything. But I laughed out loud because I'm like, okay, they got a rookie quarterback in his first start. There's no way in hell. This is going to be a comeback. Are you kidding me? Like they can't, Pittsburgh's having trouble getting a first down. So I think it's funny, like the Pittsburgh fans were so excited when they put Kenny Pickett in. They blew a 10-point lead to the Jets, and then they got absolutely destroyed by Buffalo. So I don't understand what there is to be excited about. Like your team sucks. Like it doesn't really matter who you put in at quarterback. It makes me laugh when everybody's like, "Oh, we got to put in Kenny Pickett." Well, go ahead, you can put him in. It makes no difference.
Yeah.
So So yeah, Buffalo's back and Pittsburgh is not. Going back to our fourth down theme, Brandon Staley, our old pal, he tried to pull a fast one today. So here's the situation. Cleveland Browns are up. The Chargers are winning the game, 30-28. They have the ball on their own 40-yard line. Okay, there's a minute 10 to go in the game. Okay, 4th down and 2. Okay, all they have to do is punt them deep. The Browns, they'd have to, they maybe could get a field goal. We'll see. But, the Browns, I'm pretty sure the Browns didn't have any timeouts left. But they didn't even bother punting. They just went for the 4th and 2, threw a pass, didn't get it. So Cleveland gets the ball in San Diego territory, okay, with a minute to go. Now, granted, they didn't do a very good job of moving the ball very far, so the kicker had to kick a 54-yard field goal, and he missed. So, but the guy who was I forget who broadcasted that game, but they were like, "What are you doing? This is just a really bad mistake." And they got away with it because the kicker missed a kick. And that kicker for the Browns have as a rookie, he's really good. He kicked like a 54-yard field goal in the first game to beat Carolina. So the kicker they have is legit. So the fact that they did that is it's absolutely asinine. And I think from, the people that I trust, people I listen to, they think he's a fraud. So we'll see about this Brandon Staley thing. I don't know. He got away with it today, ridiculously going for it on 4th down. That's absolute insanity, but he got away with it.
Yeah, first of all, just going for it on your own side of the field. If you were at the other team's 30-yard line, 35-yard line, then it kind of for me it becomes it's like a push. It's like I'm almost on your side of going for it because you can kind of end the game there, and they still have a ways to go to get into field goal range. What do you think about though? Because we talked about this last week with the Ravens and the Bills game, and I was listening to Nick Wright talk about it the next day, and he was, of course, he did not have a problem with John Harbaugh going for it on that 4th down there at the end of the game, and he's like, well, the one thing you don't want is the one thing the Ravens or the one thing the Bills would have been scared of was the Ravens scoring a touchdown there, and I'm just like. Look, I don't want to rehash what we talked about last week, but it's just like, really? Now granted, if Lamar Jackson hadn't thrown an interception there, maybe it works out because then you've pinned them really deep. But, I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm just like, there's this huge disconnect between us talking about this, saying a lot of these things you shouldn't go for it on 4th down, and then some other people they have this other idea about it, and I'm just like, I don't really see where you're coming from.
Yeah. Listen. First of all, the funny part about the reality of that play is there's a guy they set it up, and the guy runs a corner route, and he's wide open, and Lamar doesn't throw the ball. He waits. There was a little bit of a rush, but there was enough time for him to step and get rid of the ball, and it would have been a touchdown. The guy was wide open. But he didn't throw it. He held the ball, backed up. So this is one thing. It's a problem for Lamar that he didn't step up and throw the ball. Yeah, he would have gotten hit, but it was like, I don't know what he did on that play. Number one. Number two, if you don't get it, they got to go down the field, right? But I don't understand not taking the 3 points there. Like you put the problem. Yeah. The problem with that is if you don't get it, Buffalo now has no pressure on them because the game's tied.
Yeah.
Buffalo literally, it's like, they have to move down the field. Well, all they really have to do is, move far enough so they can punt it and end go into overtime. Like that's right. Really all they have to do. And so the problem is you create a situation where Buffalo's got the ball, they're moving it down to your end of the field, and then they can just take it easy and kick a field goal. There's no pressure on them. But if you get the 3 points, then they have to do something.
Yeah, and I think Nick Wright was making the point that he's like, well, you don't want to be making decisions that just delay losing the game. And I'm like, that just seems like a cop out. I don't know. That just seems ridiculous to me. It's like so you can't ever kick a field goal or something? Like what?
That's a false premise. You want to give yourself the best chance to win the game.
Yeah.
You know, and going for it, like, and the other thing is, what I really like that I don't think people pay enough attention to is Peyton Manning said this on the Monday night game, one of their games. He was like, "You tried 3 times to make it, and you couldn't make it. So, do you have a better play than the 3 that you already tried? Like, you already used your best play, right? The game's on the line, so that means you've already had 3 chances at this. You've used your best play, so you're going to all of a sudden come up with a better play now that you didn't make it the first 3 times. So, no, if you couldn't make it the first 3 times, that's the thing I don't understand with coaches. Like, you couldn't make it the first 3 times. Why do you think you're going to make it now? They didn't score in the second half. They've had trouble on offense all day. So I think, forget the percentages. Take the data that you know from the game that you're in.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm, and I saw this in college football, right? Notre Dame's quarterback is not good. I mean, he's average at best. So it's like, don't go for, like, you can't just go for 4th and 1. Okay, you can't just go for it anytime you want, because who's your, like, that's my first question. Who's your quarterback? What's your team like? You know, are you great at getting these?
Yeah.
You know, are you just going to quarterback sneak? Or is it, you know, you're actually going to try to, you know, on that play they had to get into the end zone, which is more difficult than just getting a yard, right? So, yeah, I think when you take everything into account, your best chance to win the game was to kick a field goal. You're delaying the inevitability of losing. I mean, Buffalo's going to get the ball after that play anyway. Like, you're not stopping Buffalo from getting the ball. They're getting it after you score a touchdown, you fail on 4th down, or you kick a field goal, you miss a field. Any way you slice it,
what I don't understand
Buffalo's
is
getting the ball next.
Yeah, the idea that, well, if you kick a field goal, it doesn't put any pressure on them. Yeah, it does. You're now behind. You have to score to either tie the game or take the lead.
Right.
You know, so it's like, I just, I'm not against analytics, but I look at some of this stuff and I go, guys, what are we doing with some of this stuff? You know, like and the thing with getting back to today, you know, with the Chargers, it's like, I understand you got all this confidence in your offense, but I mean, you know, at a certain point, you know, kick the ball deep, make them have to do something. Don't make it easier for them to just get a field goal and win to be honest, it's almost one thing if you were up by 3 instead of 2. If you were up by 3, maybe I understand it a little more, because then all they can do is tie with a field goal. But even then, if you're going to do it in your own side of the field, what if they score a touchdown?
Right.
You know, now they're going to win the game. Like, it's just, it's one of those things where there's a disconnect, and I don't, you know, I understand the being aggressive thing, and I think in the past maybe some coaches weren't as aggressive as they should have been, but now we've almost pushed it all the way the other direction, and there needs to be a little more balance, I think, between the two.
Yeah. It's gone a little bit out of control. You know, these games are decided by, you know, inches. You know, the just that 3 points, it makes such a huge difference in these games. So, you know, I know and you know, I realize, you know, it's not sexy, it's not the new thing, it's not, you know, it's not the nerd way to go, but look, man, you know, I'm trying to win. You're trying to win the game. That's all that anyone cares about. Like, that's the part that's just completely missed to me. It's like, no one cares what the numbers say. They care whether you won. Your job will be dependent on whether you win.
Well,
so
Mike Florio pointed out, he said, look, when you look at these analytics, these are numbers. And again, this is the same thing with baseball. Okay. These numbers are over the course of an entire season, or over the course of many, many 4th down tries, or whatever it is. Okay. So yes, you may be right over the long haul, but in a specific situation, it may be the wrong thing to go by those numbers. Because those numbers are, it's not, well, if you go for here, you're 100% going to win the game. No, it's never like that.
And in the NFL, it's all a small sample size. Everything's a small sample size. The Rams were not the best team last year. You know, they managed to figure it out. You know, they figured it out how to win enough games to win the postseason. You only have to be good in the NFL for like 3 months.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like, you know, so anyway, we'll move on from that. But, you know, my point is that, you know, Brandon Staley. We'll see. We'll monitor that situation, but I don't think.
Right.
You want to talk about coaches that are over their head. I think he's one of them. So, yeah,
how
Tom
about
Brady.
them Cowboys. No.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Is it time for us to give the Cowboys some credit?
No. I think we're in the. I've seen this meme on like Facebook, and it's like the Cowboys season. It's like a cycle, right? There's preseason hype, and then the year starts out. Now, usually the year starts off badly, and then they play better. But now they're actually playing well now, right? And then people start to buy in, right? And then they start to struggle a little bit. They limp into the playoffs, but everybody's like, no, I think they'll figure it out, and then they lose in the playoffs. So now we're in the good part of the cycle, right? Where they're like, well, we think they're kind of good, And I'm not. Look, I'll give them credit. They've won with a backup quarterback. They're running the ball. Their defense is actually really good.
It is.
Okay, Micah Parsons, and who's the other guy? DeMarcus or
Dexter Lawrence and Trayvon Diggs and
Micah Parsons. Yeah, those guys are good. Their defense is legit good.
By the way, that's an impressive coaching job right there. Where their defense was at the beginning of last season to now that's incredible. Like
that's why Dan Quinn's been getting all this talk about him being a head coach.
Yeah,
again.
that is a hell of a job. So we have to give the Cowboys credit for that. The draft picks, the players that they've put on that side of the ball, home runs.
Right.
On offense, CeeDee Lamb's really good. Like they've done a good job. We were worried. I thought their defense would be okay. I did not think it would be like this. So that we have to give the Cowboys credit for. Their offense, I think, it's a struggle. Their defense is obviously carrying most of the weight. I get it. And they also have a backup quarterback, so I can understand. Now, they've beaten Washington and the Giants, and they beat Cincinnati before Cincinnati was doing anything right. And, today the Rams just can't protect. So it's really tough. In that
Rams
situation.
can't protect. They're not running the ball well, so it's just
So but hey, they're 4-1. I don't know how much I can complain. Like I thought there was no shot of them making the playoffs, but based on the way they've played and the way the NFC is, they have a shot.
Yeah,
they have a shot to make the playoffs, and they play the Eagles next week. So who the hell knows?
Right.
So I think I have to give the Cowboys credit. I'm not. They were on both the lists, though. They were on the no Super Bowl and no playoffs list. So we'll see. I think I may be modifying that in some way because whatever the 7th seed is in the NFC is going to be some team that we're like, Yeah,
because especially I think we're starting to the NFL season's long, so it like you said, the first month of the season you kind of throw out. We're starting to get a better feel for some of these teams. But again, even that could change later because maybe some teams make some adjustments or people get healthy and then they start playing better. So it's tough to really, I'm not really sold on the Bucs as a Super Bowl winning, as a team that could win the Super Bowl just because their offense just does not seem like, it doesn't seem very efficient right now.
Right. So I think the Bucs and the Rams, that's a good topic. I think the Bucs and the Rams are kind of in the same boat.
Yeah.
But what do you think? Do you think either one of them can figure it out and get it right?
I don't know, and I feel like the Bucs specifically, because Brady's on the team, they get a bump. I guess you'd call it the Brady bump, where people think they're better just because Brady's and
or getting roughing the passer penalties when you get tackled.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I feel like for instance, Colin Cowherd just keeps saying, well, their receivers weren't all healthy and they're getting their receivers back. What about their offensive line? I don't know what the situation is with the injuries they had on the offensive line, and they haven't been able to run the ball that well.
So I guess the difference that I see would be the Rams, like they don't have receivers to come back. Like they have Cooper Kupp and Higbee at tight end, and Allen Robinson not really doing a whole lot. So their issues, and they have offensive line issues. Tampa is getting their weapons back, so they have the weapons, but their offensive line is the issue. So I guess that's the difference, right? Tampa maybe, and I think Tampa's defense is a little bit better than the Rams is.
Yeah,
right
I
now.
think so. I think their defense is pretty good.
But this is I hate to keep mentioning this, but this is just the way it is in the NFL now. Like somebody's going to get hot from Thanksgiving on and win the Super Bowl. That's how this is going to go.
Somebody's going to get hot. Somebody who probably doesn't have a bunch of injuries.
Right. So I don't like trying to make predictions on the playoffs or looking at any of that right now. I really hate it because it's all nonsense. The NFL's a joke every week. It's a slog. It's a meat grinder, whatever you want to call it. You don't know. I mean, it's a mess every Sunday. It's really entertaining, okay?
Yeah.
But it doesn't last for more than 1 week. It's like, okay, great. After the Dolphins beat Buffalo, we thought this was going to be great. Look at us now.
3-2, and they're playing they could be 3-3 next week.
Now we're now we're hoping for Skylar Thompson to bring us out to the promised land. It's like, the NFL is just, it's a shit show. Like, it's just the way it is. But I'm going to believe in the organizations I know that do their job and the good quarterbacks. That's who I'm going to believe in. So I'm not counting out the Rams. I'm not counting out Tampa. I'm not counting out Green Bay, even though I think Green Bay they have a lot of issues that I don't think necessarily can be solved.
Who would you say are the top five, the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now? Not based on anything else, just the way they're playing right now.
Okay, so right now, I think it's Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson,
Jalen Hurts.
Probably Brady. Man, I'd want to say Joe Burrow, or Justin Herbert, but they,
we'll see.
We'll see how Burrow.
Even Lamar Jackson, he's got some. Obviously, there were some issues in the Bills game, but he's been doing a lot of stuff. So yeah, it's tough. I mean, like I look around and I'm just like, that's what I'm thinking. Like based on the way Jalen Hurts is playing, like I'm like, he's pretty. I mean, he's pretty good. Stafford is struggling. Some of it's maybe not his fault, but he's maybe not playing as well as he was last year. And then you just look around and it's like, who else am I going to put there? I mean, Justin Herbert's he's been good. He's been good. He had an injury. He's got an injury that he's kind of dealing with. But
your point is well made, though. There's a handful of them, and then every week you're watching, Daniel Jones and Carson Wentz.
That's my overriding point. Yeah, we can quibble about who the top 5, 6, 7 guys are, but beyond that, it's kind of like Kirk Cousins. He's decent, but it's just kind of like, Dak Prescott. We'll see how he is when he comes back. He wasn't that good in the first game, Tannehill's been fine. Tannehill's been like Tannehill again the last 3 games. They're 3-2 now. So which that's kind of
what you're getting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
the rest of it's just kind of I'm Geno Smith, and Geno Smith scored some points. I'll give him credit for that, but it's like
Well, do you buy? I mean, I think I wrote down in my notes. The question is: San Francisco the best team in the NFC? Do you buy Philadelphia, or how do you feel about Philadelphia? What do you think? As far as
I don't
this
know.
minute.
I need to see more. I don't know.
Yeah. I think Philly is a good team, but I think some of this is going to start to be exposed as the season goes along, and we'll see where they're at in November. I don't know that you can continue listen. The one thing that I know is going to continue to work is their offensive and defensive lines are really good. So they're going to be good in the trenches, which that's half the battle in the NFL. Like they're going to be solid every game. They're going to be there every game, But when we're talking about winning playoff games, that's where I question it. To me, if I'm a Philly fan, I'm like, we have to get the number 1 seed, and then we've got at least a chance.
Well, and here's the thing, though. I think for most, and the funny thing is, we quibble about this, but really, unless you have a future Hall of Fame quarterback, the only way you're winning the Super Bowl is everything's got to really just line up for you in one specific year. In terms of health, in terms of who you have to play in the playoffs, whether you're home or away or whatever it is.
Yeah,
that's pretty much the case for most teams.
Right? Didn't the year the Eagles won it with Nick Foles? Didn't they play like Atlanta and then Minnesota with Case Keenum in the playoffs? Wasn't that who they played? I know they played Minnesota in the NFC Championship game because remember the Vikings won that crazy game against New Orleans.
Yeah, maybe they played Atlanta. I can't remember.
Right. Then they played Matt Ryan. So, it's like it's they really, they kind of caught it. And then look at the year with the Ravens where Flacco won it. Like they were kind of right in the middle, whatever. They were kind of a mediocre team, and then all of a sudden, they figured out they got, I think, Bryant McKinney to play left tackle, and they kind of locked in their offensive line, and then it was solid the rest of the way, and then they took off. So you're right. It's become, so maybe this concussion stuff, maybe it's a bit of an equalizer.
Possibly. Yeah. I mean, we'll see. Now, I will say this, like, there's a few teams and a few quarterbacks where I just kind of go, I'm going to pick them over, most other teams, like the Bills right now or the Chiefs. Or
right. You're going with the stability.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I just think it's kind of, and then like the Ravens in the playoffs, well, I guess it depends if they're playing at home and how Lamar's playing and all that stuff. But even them, I kind of throw them in there. It's like everything's got to kind of break their way. It could happen, but it's everybody's just, you feel like if you have Mahomes or you have Josh Allen, you're going to get multiple shots at it.
Right. Everybody's got flaws. It's just whose flaws are you more comfortable with?